Welcome everyone to our latest Spa Takeaway. I'm really delighted to be here at Disney Studios and being hosted by Tribal Apes, who have been our partners in this experience for quite a while. We started this off during COVID. We're continuing when we can. And it's a great opportunity to celebrate a moment in time with an important industry leader. I'm coming from Gadigal land, and we are delighted to be able to celebrate and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and all of the wonderful Indigenous members that we have that are working incredibly well across the sector. And as I said, we've done this in different forms over the years, and this is actually the third conversation I've had with my guest, Beverley McGarvey. Welcome to our Spa Takeaway.
Thank you so much for having me. Love to be back.
It is, you just said, we were just chatting about it, 20 years at 10 Paramount, but originally 10, and it's evolved over the years. Tell me about that. Were you surprised to discover you're still at the same business 20 years in?
Yes, but I'm not at the same business.
Yes.
So when I started 20 years ago, Net10 still had some CanWest ownership, which is how I came to be here via Dublin, via Auckland, and I came on a 2-year contract.
Oh my gosh.
And yet here I am.
It's an interesting business because it was, 10 was a business that has always had an external ownership piece to have to navigate. And as you've remained in the business and scaled to the very heights of the business, that's become an interesting challenge in different forms, but also an incredible opportunity to work globally. Do you want to talk about the way 10 and now Paramount 10 has kind of evolved over the years?
Absolutely. I think obviously 20 years ago we had one channel. Foxtel were obviously kind of a strong business. We didn't have streaming competitors. We were very busy with our one channel. I sometimes wonder how, but we were very busy. And I actually looked at some numbers recently for something, and in those days things like NCIS were doing 1.4 million in overnights, and then all the US shows were huge at 8:30. So things have changed a lot. The interesting thing, and there's been lots of changes at Network 10 over those years and lots of changes of ownership. Where we are now, being locally run and globally owned and having that great infrastructure coming through from Paramount is really interesting, because we do get to make lots of great local content and service the local Australian industry, but also we have that global business that not only provides great content for both 10 and Paramount Plus, but also that technology piece for Paramount Plus and all the infrastructure and all of the things that you need now to be really competitive in a streaming environment. So that mix is really interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of think of it, and I don't know if you, maybe the outside sometimes thinks of it as two businesses, but it isn't really at all, is it? It's an integrated operation, or maybe it's different because of the audience decisions you've got to make around the broadcast versus the streaming. But do you want to touch on that as to how you run it as two kind of separate ideas, or is it all in the same bucket of thinking with terms of partners and
I think
content?
When you're talking to audiences, how they perceive Network 10 and how they perceive Paramount Plus are very different, and they come to each of those platforms expecting very different things. And honestly, if you asked a lot of people, I think most regular viewers wouldn't understand the ownership kind of synergies between Net10 and Paramount Plus. And obviously Paramount have other assets in Australia. They have Paramount Pictures and a consumer products business and a distribution business. They have lots of other businesses. But where we do find synergy and benefit is in things like co-commissioning, which we can talk a little bit about, but also in things like running a back office that is combined, things like HR and finance and all of those services. Yes. But to the consumer, I think when you come to Paramount Plus and you see the UFC or Dutton Ranch, and you go to Network 10 and you see MasterChef or Traders, I think those things do feel quite distinct, which is fine from a consumer point of view.
So it's interesting in the streaming space, because I kind of think of there being global streamers. You'd sort of say Amazon or Netflix perhaps, and then you think of sort of local streamers being Stan. And I feel this might be the wrong interpretation, but I feel that Paramount straddles that, because it's sort of very locally grounded, because it's the connection to the broadcaster, but its ownership and the thinking, it can be global at the same time, which I think makes it a little bit more unique. But maybe that's a perception, and I don't know if that translates into business decisions and other things you've got to think about.
I think Paramount Plus is really interesting because it is in that unique position that we get those great, that phenomenal pipeline, which means we've got like a big hit coming every month, and we've just had Dutton Ranch, just launched Lioness at the weekend, Mobland is just around the corner, so there's always something huge coming. And then layered on top of that, we have all the local originals, and we can invest more deeply into those local originals because we do play them on Paramount Plus and then play them on 10. And obviously that creates a lot of conversation, and other streamers are obviously doing that as well. But if you're asking people to pay for something, it has to be on Paramount Plus first, because if people are paying you with cash, there has to be an element of exclusivity and premiumness around that, and then it gets to go on 10. So 10 does get to have more premium scripted content than it otherwise would, and that allows consumers to access it without having to pay a subscription. So it does both. So that benefit, I think, does make Paramount Plus a little bit unique, although you can see that other businesses are starting to do that sort of thing, which is great.
Yeah, and look, maybe let's come back to the commissioning piece in a second, but if we zoom out for a minute, there seems to be this chaotic consolidation needing to happen because of the way the market's changing. And I do think sometimes how are we travelling in that environment globally, and you kind of have this foot in a local and a big foot in the global connection. Is that consolidation going to need to happen in this market? Is that part of what we're going to have to see happen in order to, I guess, cope with the changes that are happening both in costs and efficiencies and, audiences?
I think ultimately the infrastructure of how all the media companies here operate will have to evolve. They always have evolved, and you can see what's happening in other markets. Businesses are starting to evolve and collaborate, and the free-to-air part of our business, we have talked now for some years with our colleagues at the other free-to-airs about how we can do more together and make things more efficient. And that is starting to happen.
Is it? I always feel like, that we've grown up in this era of the titans and of individual owners of those broadcast licenses, and I feel like 10 was sort of sitting as the in between some of these kind of crazy behaviours almost, and there was a sort of a sensible middle ground that 10 was riding through. But I just, does it feel collaborative now?
I think it does feel collaborative. I think for the last couple of years at the Future of TV Advertising, we have spoken about collaboration, and I think there will always be competitive tension on content, and there always should be, and that's what makes the content better. There should be competitive tension there, but everything else, I think everyone's up for a collaborative conversation on, especially things like transmission and play out and all of those things that cost a lot of money, and there's no need for us to operate in a competitive way if we can make things more efficient so that we can put more money on screen. And you're right, obviously in years gone by perhaps that was slightly different, but truthfully now when you look at the competition comes from so many different places, big tech platforms, how people are spending their entertainment dollars, their entertainment time. We have to collaborate or it just doesn't make sense. And also, and a good example of this was possibly on Tuesday night, when commercial free-to-air does well, it still does better for everyone.
Yes.
When more audiences come, they tend to kind of channel hop around in the free-to-air environment. And obviously we're pushing a lot of audiences into our IP linear feeds, which is a slightly different proposition, but it is still good for us to see all the other free-to-air broadcasters doing well from a net 10 point of view. I know,
and that's the same lived behaviour. When you're in that zone, you start to move around it when you're not in the different areas. I am fascinated by how BVOD is now seeming to continue to transform and grow and become more primary than maybe it was. It's still maybe a slow growth, but there was a TV Tonight article this week about the strength of BVOD, I think, and it does make me wonder about the level of broadcast spectrum needed anymore, or the amount that is probably spent, to your point, about infrastructure into just over-the-top broadcasting versus what is now where audiences increasingly are. Do you want to touch on that and the challenge of holding the spectrum perhaps, but it's also, traditionally I think it's been a competitive advantage for broadcasters to have that spectrum, so you don't want to give away anything that, for nothing.
Yeah, and the spectrum is still valuable, and our position always is, we know that it is a privilege to have the spectrum, but we abide by our quota obligations, the 55% Australian content and the sub-quotas, and in our mind,
and thank you for your service.
and that's what the spectrum's for. That's kind of that exchange of value. It's the quid pro quo. And the BVOD point of view is, of course you have to be operating in that. And the BVOD growth is fast. It really is. It is still very fast. You could pick any day of the week and we'll say our BVOD was up 30% last night, or it was up 100%, or it was up. It's always up something. And audiences are moving there. And obviously that's slightly demographic and geographic. So they do move there. But that's not free. It's servicing that BVOD audience, you know, the platform costs and all of those things, and also feeding that BVOD infrastructure. So we do, we launched Traders this week, and we launched it on our BVOD service at the weekend, and actually on YouTube as well, long before our premium TX at 7:30 on a Tuesday, because younger audiences consume things different ways. And when I say younger audiences now, I kind of mean everyone under 50. Like, it's not just 17-year-olds. People, they use our IP linear stream in an environment. They're still watching linear TV, but they're watching it in an IP environment. So we have to service that. And last year we removed 10 Play as a brand, and we just use the brand 10. So we have it's on streaming or it's on 10, because when you look at audiences, they don't think about, is it on, do I have to go through my IP connected TV or on my computer? They just go, Traders is on 10 or MasterChef's on 10, and they find it wherever they find it. So to simplify things, and that has happened in the UK. Channel 5 it's just the brand is 5, 4 do the same, the brand is 4. It's not 4 digital or My 5 anymore. So we've tried to make that easier for consumers. And when we advertise our content now, it will say on 10, and it might say streaming now, or you can watch it at 7:30, or you can watch it at 7:30 and it's streaming now, just so that viewers get used to the idea that they can consume the content wherever they want to consume it. You have to be where the audiences are. And for a lot of audiences, they're still watching free-to-air, using the spectrum, but those numbers are gradually, that shift will continue to, that balance will tip one day. We're not there yet, but it will tip one day.
And is it tipping towards the strong content brands, so that people are searching for Traitors more than they're searching for 10? Or, do you know what I mean? Is that also part of the factor you've got to think about with all of this?
I think most audiences these days are looking for shows. I think there are still brands that people go, this is my choice, especially, with a service like the ABC, people are, they're connected to that brand. And when you think of 10, 7, 9, they're legacy brands. Free-to-air TV is about 70 years old. So people are familiar and they're trusted. So I think the brand value is in that people, it's a trusted environment. They know what type of show they're going to get. They know what quality of show they're going to get.
There's protection for children. There's
all of those,
and there's great news services and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. All of those important things. But I think when you think, what am I going to watch tonight? You're going to think, well, I'm going to watch the NRL, or I'm going to watch The Voice, or I'm going to watch MasterChef, or Gogglebox, and you think about shows, and you may know where those shows are, but you know that they're in a trusted environment, and that, I think, enhances the brand of the show. But people watch shows.
And does that also then mean that you're trying to do deals increasingly for rights that lock the shows or hold the shows into certain environments? Or is it not as, how critical is that in order to monetize and keep the platforms that are ultimately funding the whole thing? How do you need to kind of secure the rights and long term into different spaces, and how do you navigate the rights now?
I would say there's not a one size fits all answer for that. What I would say is, for some of the premium content, and especially if it's behind the paywall, if people are paying for something, it has to have that level of exclusivity for a certain amount of time. But does that content have value in the long tail that can help you monetize it and therefore help you make more content? Absolutely. And even in the biggest show, on the best night, so obviously the Block's on at the minute, always a big successful show, but even on the best night, how many people watch the Block, which leaves how many people who haven't? So is there value in that show? Is there value in MasterChef a year from now to sit on a different type of service, to sit on our fast channels, for example, and allow that there to be another window of monetization? And honestly, the cost of production versus the cost or the revenue that you can write in a particular time slot are so out of whack now. You have to be able to include additional monetization windows, or you cannot justify the initial investment. And that doesn't mean it has to be just within a Paramount environment with 10, with Paramount Plus. We are open to doing things with other partners. And I think everybody is open to doing things differently now, so that you can put the finance together to allow you to invest. And depending on what type of content it is, what genre it is, what we think that evergreen long tail value is, every deal can look different, but there is not a one size fits all. I think it's slightly different in the subscription space. Like people will want an exclusive premium window.
Which is the Paramount story. And maybe we'll go to commissioning in just a second, but I am interested in leaning into that, the Traders launch, and whether that's an interesting formula, if you like, or you kind of, everything's, as you say, quite bespoke, but that is a minute where you're providing, probably not for monetary gain, a YouTube sort of space, marketing experience, and then opening it up in different ways and trying to, is it sort of iterative, trying to find your audience, and you got your team sort of working through it, or are they going, no, this is the locked in strategy and we'll do it this way? And can you describe that? Because it's very different from how we've done it previously.
I wish there was a locked-in strategy because then it would just be, it's plan B, let's do plan B. It is iterative and every show is different and things are moving so quickly. So last year when we launched Big Brother, and it was the first time we'd done Big Brother in like 15 years maybe more years than that, and we put the live stream on TikTok and the live stream was also on our streaming service. But for Big Brother to connect to audiences who weren't TV viewers the last time that we had Big Brother, we had to put the content in a place that they would find it. Right. In that case, initially it was about marketing, and then you can build an audience there, and then perhaps you can start to monetize it. But you have to, I think, be brave and try new things that might make you go, but should we have all these audiences on 10 streaming and not let them be on TikTok? But you can't have everything in a walled garden evermore because people won't find it. And that worked really well for us with Big Brother. And the team did a great job. Our traditional marketing, publicity, promo teams, they all did a phenomenal job talking to audiences in all those different places. And then TikTok was a nice little tool in the toolbox. So when we looked at Traders, and Traders really is a show, in other markets in here, it is a show that really finds life in a digital environment. So the overnight ratings will always be what they are.
Because of the clips that come through that, or because of the...
Well, it's noisy and people talk about it and people get really engaged in it, so it has to live beyond the show. So, and when we come to consolidate all the numbers at the end of the season, I think we'll find that the digital piece is what was the valuable piece, and the overnights will be the overnights, but the digital piece will be the really exciting piece, and that's how we'll get younger audiences into the environment. But with Traders, we knew that we had to get it out to people. We liked the show. We liked all of the kind of excitement and the twists and turns, but we needed people to talk about that. So putting it up early allowed people to talk about it. And we also did a slightly different launch. The team worked with Instagram, and we did a great launch with influencers so they could see it and talk about it, and we showed the full episode. And it not that long ago, probably even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we would show audiences The Bachelor as preview, and we would cut the episode off before the rose ceremony so people didn't see who was getting a rose because it was such a big secret. But with Traders, there was a big twist in episode 1, and we just let people play it, and it leaked a bit. People talked about it.
That's what you want.
The world just moved on. You have to move with it. That doesn't mean you do it with the next show, but I think you have to be willing to look at every piece of content and go, how do we... Because it's so hard to have a hit. It's so hard to have a successful show. You have to throw so much at it to get people to talk about it and to get people to lean in and engage, even if it's great. It's difficult to create a hit.
The crowded environment, it just scares me a lot, and also that the tech environment in which everyone is trying to also resolve work with, but noting that it's leaking dollars very quickly. How do you resolve this? Because these guys are also your biggest competitors for money, but also got to be your friends in marketing. So there's a relationship tension that probably is going on, right? And they're very, it's the challenges across the whole creative sector, and I think broadcasting and the big studios have been caught in the middle of this as much as anyone. We're all in some ways very connected to the challenges, and it's not. I don't know if it's deliberate. It's more, just the realities of some of these structural things that are going on. But
absolutely, the platforms. We do compete for digital premium advertising dollars, of course, and there's lots of competition in that space. It's almost infinite competition in that space, but they also are marketing avenues, but so are 7 and 9. You'll see Paramount Plus advertising on 7 and 9. We will buy airtime. because it works. Because free to air works. You get great reach, good engagement, really connected audiences, premium, the right environment. And like we buy on 7 and 9, we do spend money on YouTube and on Facebook and on Instagram. We spent marketing dollars there in that performance layer. And we do compete with them in marketing dollars. Those are for advertising dollars. Those things are all true.
Well, and then let's shift a gear into the commissioning world and the production world. And I think of, and maybe this is the brand piece that we were talking a little bit about. You know, 10 was almost always positioning itself as a youth brand for many, many years, and now it's a more complicated space, and I don't know how you sort of service the types of audiences you need. Plus, there is that overlay with Paramount and the opportunity to bring big dollars that can be justified because of the subscription base. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you're thinking about your commissioning now? And there's obvious absolute requirements under the frameworks that exist, but then there's opportunities, of course, beyond that. And traditionally, big light entertainment shows have done great things for the brand and for money. Is that still the case? Is that what you're still seeing as an opportunity, or is that a real challenge still now ongoing?
For Network 10, when I first got here, it was very much 16 to 39. That quickly moved from 16 to 39 to 18 to 49, and then to 25 to 54, and not just so that you can stay on the demo yourself, but free-to-air audiences have aged, and 10 is still the youngest. But
thank you.
it is older, obviously,
right.
But it is full service. So we do try to attract broad audiences, and those big entertainment shows bring in broad audiences. Yes. You still get co-viewing, you still get family viewing with those big shows, although free-to-air audiences are older than they used to be. However, we are bringing in younger viewers on BVOD. So something like Taskmaster, older viewers might watch it on air, but huge amounts of younger viewers watch it on our streaming service, and that would be true for all the broadcasters, that they would be seeing different demographics on different platforms. So that is true. And Paramount Plus we consider full service as well. And you look at the range of content Paramount Plus, we have all the great Nickelodeon content, and you'll get your Paw Patrol and the iCarlys right up to, as well as all the fabulous Paramount Plus originals and your Dutton Ranch and your Landman. We also have all the CBS content in there, Matlock and Elspeth, and that content that skews to CBS's core, which is older, broader audiences. So really it is full service, and that is important for Paramount Plus to be full service. And 10 is broad as well. The slight difference in Paramount Plus with 10 is in any given time slot we kind of need to be full service at 7:30 to everyone, whereas in Paramount Plus you can be full service with 6 different shows. Yes. So we can serve you Paw Patrol and Dutton Ranch, and there is something for everyone on the platform. But at 7:30 on 10, to get the numbers we need to be viable, it has to appeal to more than one segment of the audience at the same time, and actually in a way that is more challenging.
Is commissioning original IP in that environment almost impossible now because of all of that pressure and the trust and risk equation of brands that already exist in the market and history of doing things in a certain way? Like how big is the appetite for new? And you've had big swings in the past that have sometimes not paid off and sometimes have. So I'm just interested in what's shifted there.
It's not impossible. I think new IP is, in the scripted space, it's almost all new IP.
Is, yeah, that's true.
That's slightly different. But in the non-scripted space, we would look at original ideas if we thought we could make them viable. It is riskier, of course. You've got to spend more marketing dollars. So is there a way to solve that problem so that it comes with marquee talent that bring an audience, or that we know there's a very particular reason that it will cut through? So I wouldn't say no.
And you've had some great trusted partners that you've given the sort of beyond almost anyone else's patience is the wrong word, but you've given an ability to breathe, and they've been successful. Some of the working dog programs you have are incredible.
Absolutely, and they do great work. And lots of the production companies do great work. So we would absolutely always look at those types of shows. And obviously Sam Pang had his own show last year, and that's not that's not IP related. That's really a testament to Sam's talent, and he's making a third series any moment now. So we will try new things, and we will always be looking for new talent as well. And things like Taskmaster are great. And if you look at Taskmaster, it's quite formulaic in its casting. You get like an established comedian, and you might find, or a couple of established comedians, and some people who are just breaking through, and some people who come from that are influencers, or they do their work on YouTube, and audiences know them because they're comedians. That my kids watch on YouTube. So
that's a strategic casting.
And that's strategic casting, so that, again, there's something for older audiences who grow up watching comedy on the ABC, but there's also something there for a 15-year-old that gets all their 30-second comedy clips on YouTube, and they recognise someone. So it's not impossible. It is challenging. And honestly, because it is so challenging, I think it's also probably very challenging for the production community to commit to development dollars and developing new IP. It probably feels quite... risky for them.
You guys had an upfront window you tried a few times, and it feels like in order to break through, we've got to think about those things differently, because they need breathing space and development dollars and ideas that are probably in this environment difficult for a commercial business to be tackling because of the risk profile. But I give you credit when you've given that a real crack, but I understand the challenge. Can you talk a little bit about the budgets of productions and what now will fly within a 10 universe? And you touched on the kind of monetization challenge versus maybe the breathing space you have with the Paramount universe, and what the gap or what's fallen out from the world that now is needing to be monetised in both pockets?
Mostly things that sit across both at this point. It's scripted content, not exclusively. We obviously did a few seasons of Inspired Unemployed, and that sat across both, and that was obviously non-scripted. And we've done a couple of non-scripted things that have sat across both, but it is mainly in a scripted environment, and that allows you to split the investment across two platforms and therefore make more. So that works in that way. I think the challenge for a market the size of Australia, when the audiences are shifting and the dollars are shifting faster, is that there are certain types of show that a market the size of Australia just can no longer support. I used to always work with a producer that said Australians have champagne taste on a beer budget, and they expect our version of Survivor to look like the US version of Survivor.
And it often does.
And it often does.
Without the dollars.
Yeah, and it's very, very hard to sustain that for the production community and for the broadcasters, because we don't have a population of 330 million or 70 million like they do in the UK. And, I was going to say bad weather, although they're having a weird heat wave, but, still higher sets in use per head because of, natural reasons in that market. So it is very hard to sustain that. And in fact, I would almost say impossible. And we have tried to do things to allow us to continue to make what we would call bigger shows and do it differently. So when we brought Big Brother back last year with ESA, it is a different production methodology than it was 15 years ago. Now that's due to the development of technology over that time, so it has become more efficient to be able to shoot people 24 hours a day in a closed environment. We talked about Traders that we just launched a couple of days ago. We actually we did 2 seasons a few years ago, and then there were 2 years we didn't do it, but we loved the show, and it was such a global hit, and those big global hits come around honestly once a decade, and we really felt there was something in it, and we managed to shoot the season that we're airing at the moment, which doesn't have the same production value as the beautiful version in the Scottish Castle that both the UK and the US are throwing money into. It's different, but we shot it in New Zealand off the back of the Kiwi production. So there was...
because of the dollar there, or the efficiency of the different way of doing it?
All of that. Right. Because, they shot the Kiwi version, so we got amortisation efficiency. Okay. It was almost a hub.
And we do sometimes in this market for other territories, and the Irish, we were talking before about the Irish doing a bit, but and was there anything that you think from that shoot that the Australian production companies should go think differently the way we've done it? Like, because you see many ways of shooting and possibly not everyone catching up as quickly. Is there some things that you go, the lesson they had there is something we should be communicating to people?
We probably sacrificed a little bit of production value so that we could make the show.
Right.
However, the response from the audience has been good.
Yes.
And also, because it's so beautiful in New Zealand, we had beautiful drone shots of, the South Island, and that almost helped enhance what was otherwise a more efficient production. So and that's not true for every production, but every production has something that you could be a bit clever with to try and, so the audiences still feel they're getting that premium experience, but you're not, you know, blowing the budget on fancy night shoots and helicopters. Yeah,
I get it. I'm interested in the forward planning that goes into the type of commissioning you have and what sort of, you know, lead time you give everything, and the urgency, because it used to be sometimes you needed things to fill holes in schedules, and that doesn't seem to be quite the same. You know, there's a bit more breathing space perhaps to plan that out, but it also requires a level of budget certainty and maybe global decision making to assist that. I don't know. You know, I'm not quite sure how all your decisions are made in isolation of a global sort of idea. And the certainty of government investment is pretty important in this, because they're like an anchor investor in this. So you want to touch about how you're kind of setting your budgets, forward planning, and then, because we're all partnering with you in different ways, or people are, how they are being communicated with about how much you have and what you need, and the sort of planning for that's necessary.
I wouldn't say we ever talk to the production community about how much we have. It's more about what do we need, and what sort of volume, what sort of cost per hour that we could tolerate. Like what the actual schedule can tolerate in terms of
what
the monetization.
Can it tolerate at the moment?
Less than you think, which is the hard. I'd say you talk to anyone, the revenue you can return in an hour of television is phenomenally different than it once was, which is why we try to be clever with things like production methodology, and why things like funding and offsets become so critical, because Australian audiences like Australian content. They really want to see Australian content. So we keep making it.
It is nice to be able to honestly put your hand on your heart and say that. And it's not, in other territories you can't really say that.
That's true, but Australians do want to see Australian content. So we need, when you talk to different government bodies, and they talk about how important it is for, the cohesion of the culture to have Australian culture, to have Australian content, and to have those moments. And of course, sport is one that's talked about often, and that is critical, but it's not the only thing. No. So if there will continue to be premium Australian content, we do need to keep being able to tap into those different offsets and different funding bodies that we can rely on to help us make that Australian content, because the pure economics just get harder and harder. But it is important that people can sit down and watch Australian content in different genres together, and it can't all just be one particular genre, because there's a slight lean that we need to do this. Like, it needs to be everything. People have different taste and different requirements,
Well, I will ask you probably to think about that. Well, we've talked at the time about the challenge of children's content and the difficulties of monetising, and the reality is at the moment that isn't being really commissioned anywhere apart from the ABC. Do you want to touch on that challenge, but also how much the sort of system is being drained effectively because of price of sport? Sports rights are so big, and money is going to that because of the competitive environment for a lot of the platforms, and that is taking away a bit of the opportunity, I suppose, for everyone else.
Yeah, I think, I would say this, since COVID, a big chunk of money has left the free-to-air commercial broadcasters. And those advertising dollars have largely gone to the platforms, probably faster than the audiences have. So that's one thing. So when we talk about, some of the issues that the industry's facing, that's one. And then, of course, it is so critical for so many businesses that they have that premium sport, because it's such a reliable audience draw, and you know how much it's going to be. Clients love it. You know how many people are going to watch it. Almost, it's really predictable. So it's so important. And those rights have obviously, gotten bigger. So there's money going there, which just means the money that's making Australian entertainment and Australian drama, and news is critical, and we all invest in news, and news requires a certain amount of investment in order for it to be local and viable and all of the things that it needs to be credible and well researched and all of those things. So there's money going there, there's money going to sport, there's money leaving, and then the squeeze just comes on other things. And I think those other things are important and they are as culturally relevant as other things, but it's very hard to keep making them to the same degree. And there's also a slight cultural elitism about certain things. I think Australians, of course, can get behind sport. And to a degree, people can get behind Australian drama. But entertainment's important. Not everybody wants to watch drama. Not everybody wants to watch sport. Lots of people do, but other people want to watch entertainment. And it is fine if they want to watch a constructed reality show. We can't be elitist and tell people what they're going to watch. People are watching 30-second clips on platforms. That's what they want to watch, and that is as acceptable as anything else. But if we want to continue to make all of the entertainment content and the factual content and the lifestyle content, we have to be able to find ways to invest in that.
And we don't support it with the same level of offsets now in other territories that we should be doing. And I'm a big fan of thinking broadly and differently about the way we've kind of constructed the sort of the regulatory systems. All these other things have been built about almost a changed, different audience environment that we're in. I've got two. We need to wrap up, and I've got two sort of questions, or a couple of questions. One of them is, if you were in the producer's chair, what would you be doing differently to kind of get, I don't know, attraction in what you're doing? What is it that what do you see that the learning could be for a producer that you'd guide them on?
I think there are two parts, and they're equally important. First of all, the viability of a show's success. Now, that's just not that initial creative idea. So there's that initial creative idea, and then execution capacity.
Yes.
Can it be cast? For example, we're in the middle of casting a show at the minute that needs lots of funny people. There is a finite list of funny people. So are there enough funny people here to make this type of show? So is it viable? Can it be cast? Can it be shot? Whatever it is, whatever genre it is, but is it really producible? And the second thing is the business plan. The business plan has to make sense.
The deal.
The deal has to work, because the most wonderful, brilliant show in the world, like, we're a business. If it doesn't make sense, we cannot make it. And even if we all love it, and the content team and Tamara and all of those guys love it, if it doesn't make sense, there's no way that we're going to be able to go, we're going to green like this because we love it. It's going to lose buckets of cash, but that's okay. Like, it's just not possible. No business can do that.
There was a time when people did do that. We sort of.
Well, there used to be more money.
There used to be more money. There was wiggle room. Okay, two questions, maybe short responses. What keeps you up at night, and what excites you?
The same thing. New shows keep me up at night and excite me.
That's true, because you want this baby that you've built to kind of work. I get it. Okay. Beverley, we've probably covered everything in a race to try to keep this manageable. I could talk to you for a couple of hours, and I'm delighted you were able to join me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.